All right, so this is a video related to Paul Marcus. Paul Marcus is a psychoanalyst, so he studies people's minds and how the mind operates, and he ultimately tries to make people happier. He tries to improve their lives. He tries to help them come to grips with their demons or with their neuroses, things that kind of hold them back. And what we're going to be studying in this course is a case vignette, is what he calls it. So it is a recounting and a telling of one of the cases that he himself was involved with. And in this case, the setup here is essentially you've got this husband. And this husband has been with his wife for a long period of time. I forget the exact number of years, but let's say over 25. The couple has had a bunch of kids, the youngest of which is still in high school. Now, he's unhappy. His wife hates him. His wife is a pain in the butt to live with. His wife makes him miserable in the sense of not supporting him, constantly critiquing him, not appreciating his efforts. And he's going to therapy, this husband. He's going to this guy, Paul Marcus, because he's debating. Should I leave my wife or should I not leave the wife? And the reason that this has become more intense of late is because he's recently met an old flame from college. What we come to find out is his true love, his soulmate. And just by circumstance, this woman also happens to be single at the moment. Well, not also happens to be single, but is single at the moment. And so is available. And so they kind of reconnect. And the question that this patient has, Noah, is whether or not he should leave his wife. And the question, the next question becomes, well, why would he stay if he hates it, if it's terrible, if it is, as the psychoanalyst says, a loveless hell? What makes him stay? And the initial answer is that it's a sense of duty, that his wife, he thinks, is sick, psychologically sick. She can't help it. She can't help that she's miserable. She can't help that she puts her husband through hell. And so he feels a sense of duty. He feels like he would be in abandoning her. And he also has a deep commitment to his wedding vows, which say, in sickness and her health, in good times and her poor. And so he's very committed to that. He's very much a man of duty here. So you might say, look, he's a complete altruist. And we're obviously studying this case within the context of this section of the course. That he really cares more about others, more about his duty to his wife or duty in general than his own desires. His own desires would lead him to the old college flame. And he also, another kind of element here, is that he feels a great devotion and a great duty to his kids. And leaving his wife at this juncture would be upsetting, particularly to the youngest kid that is still in high school. Okay, so he's got all these kind of devotions, he's got all these duties. It seems like here's a guy who is completely devoted to others, or at least devoted to something bigger than himself. But then the psychoanalyst drills down and says, okay, well, why is it that he is so devoted to duty? What makes him so attached to it? And Paul Marcus, the psychoanalyst, says he has this very interesting conception of himself. He views himself as a good man, a man of his word, and he's not a quitter. This is the self-image that this guy has of himself. And he's very, very, very devoted to this self-image. This self-image is critical to his identity. It constitutes kind of who he is. And so this is important. Why, you can ask, why is this self-image so important? Well, and what does this image say about his loyalties? Well, it may be that he's more devoted to this self-image than he is to his wife or his kids even, or just to kind of something bigger than himself. It may be that he is so devoted to this image, this idea that he has of himself, that he's willing to undergo hell to preserve the self-image. He's willing to forfeit his desires in order to maintain this image of himself. And so then the question becomes, okay, this guy seems like a complete altruist, but is he in fact an egotist? Is he in fact using others in a certain sense to maintain this image of himself? Is he using others because by doing this, others will say that he is so devoted, he is such a faithful husband, he is such a good guy? Is that really what he wants out of it? Perhaps, and I can't answer that question definitively. But it is really, really interesting because what it says is that we can't necessarily judge altruism by what people do or even what people say. At the deepest kind of recesses of a person's psyche, it may be not altruism that drives someone, it may be egotism. And so that's really, really kind of fascinating. When we judge someone, when we think about someone, we've got to be very, very careful here and very considerate. And so again, that just kind of adds to the section of the course because it reminds us that when we think about what people are doing, and we're thinking about, do we categorize them as a radical egotist, or do we categorize them as a complete altruist, or do we categorize them according to some other moral theory? Their deepest psychological states matter, and it's something that we have to think about.